starting. Today's date is December 21st, 2025. We're having an Israeli-Palestinian Confederation simulation. We are proposing a federal government for the people of Israel and Palestine that would include the people in Gaza, the West Bank, and in Israel, 15.5 million people to live in a democracy based on secular constitution, separation between government and religion, independent of the Israeli and the Palestinian government, a true democracy with a legislative body with 300 parliament members, Palestinians and Israelis as equal, executive branch, Palestinians and Israelis, one president, one vice president, rotating in 2 years, and a judicial branch, Palestinians and Israelis as equal based on a constitution. You can read the constitution at ipconfederation.org, and the constitution is available in 3 languages, English, Hebrew, and Arabic. So if you go to our website, ipconfederation.org, and you click the Constitution, you can read the preamble and the entire Constitution. We will be presenting part of that Constitution in our simulation, but you can read the whole Constitution at ipconfederation.org. You can also read about who supports us, about who we are, and frequently asked questions. All of this in 3 languages. Our guest today is Ron Naiweld. Professor Ron Naiweld is a historian and a researcher at the School of Advanced Studies in Social Sciences in Paris. His work explores the history of Judaism and the connection between religion, power, and identity in Jewish history. He has written widely about the origins of rabbinic authority, the formation of sacred texts, and the relationship between religion and politics. Professor Naiweld also contributes to public discussions on Israeli society, offering thoughtful perspectives on how history and beliefs can shape a more and peaceful future. Our next speaker is a Palestinian attorney, Roa Kitani. She'll be our guest on January 11, 2026. After that, we will have 2 gentlemen, Elijah Kannenberg and Jad Hashem. They are both of Palestinian and Israeli descent, and they happen to work with students around the U.S. in order to explore the option of peace in Israel-Palestine. On February 8th, we will have, I have it Nava, I'm sorry, it's actually Noga Kadman. I made a mistake. I should have caught that. Noga Kadman, an Israeli researcher and a human rights activist. So Noga, if you're here, my apologies for naming you. On March 8th, we'll have a special Nakba session with Omar al-Gubari. He's a Palestinian lecturer. I took one of his tours, an amazing tour at Lifta in Jerusalem. He's very familiar with the Nakba. He specializes with the Nakba, and we should have a very interesting session with him. And I also suggest that if you get a chance to go to Israel, Palestine, contact him. He gives, his organization, Zochot, gives regular tours, and I'm sure they will have a tour of the village that I have toured as well. We are demonstrating how a common federal government could thread the needle. What does it mean? It means that how it could pass legislation that would be acceptable to both the Palestinians and the Israelis. It will be acceptable because it would benefit the people of Israel and Palestine, and the governments of Israel and Palestine will have no choice but to accept this legislation. So that it's clear, we are not really proposing how a federal government should work. We're just proposing how it could work, how it could pass legislation that both sides will have to agree. This is a simulation. This is not a lecture. Professor Naiweld was not invited here to speak as a lecturer. He was invited to give his opinion of what he is about to see as part of this simulation. I ask you, please put your comments in the chat. Nasir will translate your comments into questions, and we are encouraging questions. Please ask questions, as many questions as you can, because that would clarify for you and the rest of the people on this Zoom what it means to have a federal government in the context of what's going on in Israel, Palestine, and the governments of Israel and Palestine. This is a 2-minute video that explains the concept of a federal government or confederation.
The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians has endured for generations. And instead of time healing the wounds, it's only caused the anger to fester and the violence to grow. But what if there was a way to alleviate the tension? Something that may not outright solve every problem, but at least create a forum that encourages a peaceful compromise. Welcome to the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, a common third government between the Israeli and Palestinian citizens, specifically designed to foster peace, tolerance, and economic prosperity between the two nations. Here's how it works. First off, both Israel and Palestine will keep their respective governments. Israel's Knesset and the Palestinian National Authority will remain unchanged. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, IPC, will be a third entity acting as a unifying agent between the two. The IPC will comprise 300 parliament members elected from 300 districts in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Above them will preside a president and vice president, one Israeli and one Palestinian. In order for the IPC to pass a law, it will require a 55% majority from its Israeli representatives, as well as a 55% majority from its Palestinian representatives, thereby preventing either side from monopolizing the legislature. Of course, the IPC won't undermine the political power of either the Israeli or the Palestinian government. At any time, Israel or Palestine may veto a law passed by the IPC. If neither side vetoes, the law is passed. And the two nations are another step closer to resolution. Please help us make this a reality. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. We might speak different languages, but we all mean the same thing.
So we are simulating what's in that video, and let's take a survey before we start the simulation, and we will compare that survey to the post-simulation survey. At this time, please vote. Do you support a common government for Israel and Palestine? If you support, vote yes. If you do not support, vote no. It's perfectly okay to say both yes or no. You can't say both yes and no. You have to choose whether it's yes or no. Please vote. Do you support a common federal government? If you do, vote yes. If you do not support, vote no. Okay, I'm giving you 10 more seconds to vote. Whether you support, vote yes. If you do not support, vote no. Okay, please publish the votes. 87%, 13 out of 15 voted yes. And 2 out of 15 voted no, which is 13%. I know we have more people. Some people are not able to vote because of they're using a phone or their computer doesn't allow them. We'll compare that to the end of the simulation. Confederation and federal systems exist worldwide to address specific conflicts, and their definitions vary and evolve. In the Israel-Palestine context, the IPC defines both federation and confederation in the same way, as set out in the Constitution, a shared democratic government for Israelis and Palestinians based on principles outlined at IP Confederation. So we define confederation and federation in the same way, which is our Constitution. This is the heart of the simulation. We are, from this point on, we will be acting as if the federal government has been elected. I will be acting as if I'm the president. You will be asked to be parliament members. So like I said, this is not a lecture. This is a simulation in which we are assuming. Let's assume that this federal government has been elected. Let's assume that we were able to obtain $100 million and we spend it on a year-long campaign promoting the elections. Not only promoting the elections, but promoting the parliament members and promoting a system, a platform for the people of Israel and Palestine to elect, to vote and to be elected. Let's make that assumption. Let's make the assumption that 15.5 million people in the West Bank and in Gaza were given 3 months to vote, not 1 day, but 3 months to vote. They could use their own computers, they can use their friends' computers, their own phones, 3 months to vote. Let's make that assumption. Let's make the assumptions that 5 million people have voted. Let's make the assumption that 3 million Palestinians have voted. Let's make the assumption that 2 million Israelis have voted. Let's make the assumptions that me, Joseph, received 2 million vote to be the president of the whole area of Israel and Palestine, received 2 million people from the entire population of Israel, Palestine, and a vice president lady received 1.5 million votes, and constitutionally, I am required to become a vice president in 2 years, and she will become president in 2 years. Let's make the assumption that 300 parliament members were elected. I'm going to be asking you to be parliament members. Each parliament members, you will represent your district. You do not represent the people of Palestine or the people of Israel. I am the one who represents the whole area under this assumption. You represent your district. Your district could be exclusively Palestinian, exclusively Israeli, or in many cases, both Palestinians and Israelis. So these are the assumptions that we are going to be working under during the simulation. Before I go to Professor Naiweld, let me go to you, the audience, I will be asking you to be parliament members in few minutes. Do you have any questions regarding these assumptions? Please speak now if you have any questions regarding these assumptions. Again, these are assumptions for how we are going to continue with this simulation. Okay, I hear no questions. Let's go to Professor Naiweld. Ron, do you have any comments or questions regarding these assumptions?
No, I have none.
Okay. Do you think that it is possible to achieve what's shown here in terms of having an election, having people of Palestine and Israel vote together for 300 parliament members and for president and vice president, given the resources of $100 million?
Yes, I mean, of course. I think it is possible given the resource and some time. 1 year, you said, I think.
Yes.
it take, yeah, at least, yeah. I think it is.
1 year for the people of Israel and Palestine to be aware of this, and
Yeah.
3 months for them to vote. All right, thank you. All right, so now I'm going to be asking you, the audience. So just a reminder, this is the area we are talking about. Israel and Palestine, Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel. This is now the simulation. Okay, so do not be offended. Just play along with me, please. I was just elected as the president of the whole area by 5 million votes. I'm going to be asking you, the audience, to choose whether you are parliament members in one of those areas representing, I forgot what's the number, 65 or 55. Let me go back. 51,666,000. How did we get to that number? If you divide 15.5 million people by 300, you get that number, 51,000. So I am asking you, please go along with this assumption and accept your role, accept a role as a parliament member, either Israeli or Palestinian, or representing a Israeli district, Palestinian district, or a mixed district. And I'm asking you, remain intellectually honest. Who do you represent? In other words, what district do you represent? And is your district exclusively Israeli or exclusively Palestinian? Because when we have a debate regarding suggested constitution and legislation, I may ask you, who do you represent? Where is your district? Because I want to show that as a parliament member, you have different responsibilities than just your own personal opinion. You become a politician representing a district. The district is important to you. You were elected by the district. Okay. Please make a choice right now. Are you an Israeli parliament member or a Palestinian parliament member? And remain so throughout the simulation, please. You cannot switch from Palestinian to Israeli or Israeli to Palestinian. Okay, I'm giving you another 15 seconds to make your choice, whether you are a Palestinian parliament member or Israeli parliament member. All right, publish the vote. I don't think we ever had that exact 7 out of 14 Israelis, 7 out of 14 Palestinian, 50% and 50%, so that it's clear. Under the Constitution, it doesn't really require that both Israelis and Palestinians will be equal, because even if the number is not equal, you still require 55% of the Palestinian parliament members and 55% of the Israeli parliament members to agree. So in all likelihood, the number will not be equal once we have the real election. And this Constitution understands that and allows for that to happen. It could happen if we have the real election in a year or in 50 years. The numbers could change, but the formula still requires 55% of the Israeli and 55% of the Palestinian parliament members. This is why the Constitution would be able to withstand the time even 100 years from now. All right. So keep in mind, now we need one of you to be a Palestinian president. Nasir, are you willing to be the Palestinian president?
Yes, I can be the Palestinian president.
I'm sorry?
Yes, I can be the Palestinian president.
Thank you so much. So you are not part of the parliament. You cannot vote, but you have a veto power. Do we have a volunteer to be an Israeli prime minister? Someone who can play a real Israeli prime minister. Can I ask someone of you to act as Israeli prime minister? We always have that difficulty of someone assuming the role of an Israeli prime minister. But please help us with this simulation. If you are capable of assuming the personality, don't worry, it's not going to hurt you. We're just playing along in this simulation. Can I have someone to act as Israeli prime minister? All right, you may want to change your mind later or accept that role. If you become an Israeli prime minister, you are not part of the parliament, but you get a veto power over the legislation. All right. Nasir, can you be both the Israeli and the Palestinian?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, good. If we don't have one, then you may want to be both. All right. So we have an election. We had an election. I was elected president. We have a parliament members who were elected by 5 million votes. We allowed the whole area to vote. We are now ratifying, the parliament is ratifying the Constitution. Libby, would you be so kind as to read the Constitution?
All right, here's the Constitution. Palestinians and Israelis are entitled to equal rights under the law and guaranteed human rights and freedom. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation does not intend to supersede or supplant the Palestinian or Israeli governments, nor to abrogate or undermine any agreements between those governments. We recognize the need to work with the Israeli and Palestinian governments. Our purpose is to resolve conflicts and to expand the relationship between Palestinians and Israelis in a fair and equitable manner. We believe in equal rights under the law, guaranteed human rights, and freedom for all. We voluntarily give the legislatures and the governments of Israel and Palestine veto power over legislation we pass relating to the domain of control of those governments. We believe in the separation of power between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. We believe in the creation of a permanent secular government for all the people residing in Israel and Palestine. We believe in having a separate judicial branch relating to IPC legislation with Israeli and Palestinian judges, with a system to avoid biased decisions based on nationality.
All right, before we ratify the Constitution, I see Shlomo, you have a question.
Yes, I have a question. Why do we need the veto to have the veto possibility in the Constitution? Constitution is about us, not about the Israeli government, not about any government. I don't see any reason for us in the Constitution to put a veto. We can do it a resolution, and then we can vote whether we agree or disagree to let the Israel veto power. No, I think it doesn't belong to the Constitution.
All right. The reason I think it does belong to the Constitution is we want to get as many people to participate as parliament members and to give them the legitimacy to be in the parliament, and to emphasize that we are not there to undermine the Israeli or the Palestinian governments. And the veto in the Constitution gives us a tool to justify our position that we are not there to undermine the Israeli or the Palestinian government. If we do not have the veto power, then we give the Israeli and remember they are powerful governments. We give them the excuse to claim that we are subversive, that we are trying to undermine the Israeli or the Palestinian government. So that's why we have the veto. If there was no Israeli government or Palestinian government, I would have agreed with you. But we want to get as much support from the people of Israel and Palestine, and we want to give protection to our parliament members.
I see your
And
point. I see your point. But both governments are not legitimate. The Palestinian government is just a subservient, as a slave of the Israeli government. The Israeli government is a mafia. It's not a government. It's a Nazi type of government. I don't see why we even need to consider them at all. I mean, but again, I see your point. You
for
don't want.
practical reasons. All right. Any other questions? All right. We are now required to ratify the Constitution. Parliament members who have been elected, you ran a 1-year campaigns accepting the Constitution. You are required to now ratify the Constitution, just like in any other democracy. Let's go to the Palestinian parliament members. Please ratify the Constitution. Do you support the Constitution? All parliament members must support. If you do not support the Constitution, then you will be expelled from the parliament, not from the country. You don't have to be you don't have to, if you are not elected parliament members, you do not have to accept the Constitution. But as parliament members, you are required to accept the Constitution. And if you are not, then you are expelled. So let's publish the vote. 1 Palestinian parliament members voted no. That Palestinian, he or she, is expelled from the parliament. Whoever received, can you please identify yourself, the person who voted no on the Constitution, the parliament members? Okay, regardless, that person is not allowed to vote. And the person who accept the Constitution, who received the second number of votes of his or her district, will become a parliament member. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Israeli parliament members. Please ratify the Constitution. Publish the votes. 100% of the Israeli parliament members ratified the Constitution. So let's go to our guest, Ron. Do you have any comments regarding what you have just seen? Remember, now we are in a stage of we're playing as if we are the government.
No, I don't have. I agree with what Shlomo said, and I told you when we met, but I can see the practical reason for this, for including the veto article in the Constitution. And no, I don't have any other remarks.
Okay, great. All right. So congratulations. This is a momentous event in the history of humanity. Never in the history of human being has there ever been a democracy elected in the area of Israel, Palestine. Never. We just created historical events where we elected a democratic government for the entire people of Israel and Palestine that separates between religion and government based on equality, based on a constitution for the entire area of 15.5 million people. This undermines the existing government's use of fear and hate to justify their actions. And by the way, we have done that with a minimal investment of $100 million, minimal investments. It removes the collective stigma against Israelis and Palestinians that we are not democratic, that we are incapable of making peace, that we are basically born to fight each other. And it provides a huge political capital to me, the president, and to you as parliament members. We are in a different stage of history right now, and it compels the governments and other organizations of around the world to contribute to our success, and it gives us new self-image. We have to be proud of ourselves, of what we have achieved, and proves that the Israelis and the Palestinians are not a monolithic society, that some of us agree, some of us disagree. We're not a monolithic society, and we not all Israelis and all Palestinians think opposite of each other. All right, now we're going to be dealing with the issue that was raised by Shlomo in a legislative way. Ron, by the way, anytime, because you're a guest, anytime you want to make a comment, please do.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Granting a veto power to the separate governments. Libby, would you be so kind as to read this legislation?
The Confederation is the government of the entire population of Israel and Palestine from the river to the sea. We recognize the Palestinian and Israeli governments and are seeking their cooperation to implement our vision for peace by giving them a veto. We will do our utmost to satisfy the essential needs of each government. We are pleading with the Palestinian and Israeli public to understand that while we would like to pass the best legislation possible to improve their lives, under these constraints, a perfect legislation is not possible. We hereby bestow a veto power relating to legislation affecting sovereignty to the following: the government of Israel on issues in which it is indispensable, the Palestinian government on issues in which it is indispensable. In the event of changes in the entirety of the Israeli or Palestinian governments, this legislation may be amended or repealed subject to the IPC Constitution. The Parliament will decide on indispensability. Vetoes may be bestowed individually or collectively.
So now we are narrowing down the issue of veto that was raised earlier. We don't give them a blanket veto power. We understand that they are not legitimate government. We are the legitimate government. We give them a veto power on issues that we have no choice, that they are indispensable. For example, on issues relating to the use of land, to police force, to removal of the wall, they may be indispensable. Although we are presenting legislation today on police force that I, as the president, introduced, and I'm claiming that they are dispensable. We'll talk about that. Examples of dispensable is if we talk about our own budget, ratifying the Constitution, and appointing IPC ministers. Now, we are really trying to make the Israeli and the Palestinian governments as dispensable as possible, and to create our government as more legitimate as possible in order to make those governments less relevant. but we have to deal with their reality. Why do we give them a veto power? Because a veto power provides a safety net to the population and to the parliament members and our candidates. Remember, most Israelis and probably most Palestinians want to have their government and trust that their governments, the Israeli and the Palestinian governments on each side, gives them the security they want. Personally, I disagree with that, but that's not how the public in Israel Palestine view their governments. So we have to give them a safety net. A veto power increases the likelihood that Israelis and Palestinians will participate because they will understand that we are not trying to undermine their government. We give them a veto power. It decreases the chances that Israelis and Palestinian governments will oppose the federal government. They will not have legal legitimacy or legal ground to oppose the federal government because we give them a veto power. It removes any claim that we are a subversive organization trying to remove them. It would give legal protection to our candidates. Imagine if you are running for parliament and you have run for parliament, you have been elected, you want to be protected from legal implications coming from the Israeli or the Palestinian government. It compels the IPC to thread the needle, to find the least objectionable legislation to the governments of Israel and Palestine, and creates a platform for negotiation with a deadline. So, does anyone have any questions before we vote on granting a veto power? Okay, so let's vote on this, and then we'll go to Ron. Palestinian parliament members, please vote on this legislation. We need 55% of you to vote on this, to vote yes in order to pass this legislation. Okay, publish the vote. 83% of the Palestinian parliament members voted in favor of this legislation. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Israeli parliament members, please vote. Israeli parliament members, if you are accepting the veto power, please vote yes. If you're rejecting it, please vote no. Israeli parliament members, please vote. 10 more seconds to vote. Publish the vote. We have 50% of the Israeli parliament members voting no and 50% voting yes. So this legislation has not yet passed. This is really the first time that I've encountered this situation. Do the Israeli parliament members who voted no, can you please identify who you are? Israeli parliament members who voted against?
Moi. I still not convinced, and I don't care if what they think about us, whether we are subversive or whatever. They are not legitimate. You said it. They are not legitimate. I'm not giving them any vetoes power. This is a country. This is a government that is committing genocide right now as we speak for the last 2 and more years. This is not a government I will give any veto on anything.
Okay, what area, what is your district?
Haifa.
Okay. And so you don't represent anyone in Gaza.
No, but
You don't represent anyone in northern Israel.
I don't know what I am representing
Well,
now.
you said you represent Haifa.
Okay. Yes, I represent Haifa in my opinion.
Okay.
In
All
my
right.
opinion.
So okay. So I just want to point out that your district does not have any really immediate security issues with regard to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Let's go to the second person who voted no. Please identify yourself. The second Israeli, there are 3 Israeli parliament members who voted no. You're not willing to identify yourself. So, Shlomo, you identify yourself, but you're really being inconsistent. You voted in favor of the Constitution.
You're right. You're right. And the reason is because of the other items. So I like the other items. I don't think the veto power should be in the Constitution, but since
But
you
you
put it,
voted in favor of the Constitution.
yes, but not for everything. It is
Yeah,
like
you ratified the Constitution.
I'm sorry. So why do you make so why do we have all of this?
You ratified the Constitution.
Yes, so
That means that you are accepting the principles of the Constitution, and now you're acting against your own allegiance to the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, Constitution doesn't mean that I agree to everything. In this case,
Yeah, you do. You
wait,
do.
wait,
So,
wait, wait.
okay.
You
So,
have to make a decision
okay.
whether
So
you put it.
I am the president,
Yes, but you have to make
and
a decision.
I will be calling for the impeachment, for your impeachment as a parliament member, because you are voting against what you ratified. You are not being consistent based on your presentation to the people of Haifa that you ran. You told them for a whole year to vote for you because you're accepting the Constitution, which was published, and now you are voting against the Constitution, and you are...
No, it's not against the Constitution. It's against one item that should not be in the Constitution. But because you put it there, and because I want the Constitution
right.
to exist, I voted for it.
Okay.
I suggest that you think again about it. This is, I understand why you put it. I fully understand, and you have a point. I must admit, you have a point because you don't want to antagonize especially government of Israel, because there is no other government really. So I understand you, but my conscience doesn't let me give them the veto power.
Then you shouldn't be running for parliament.
Okay, maybe. Yeah, maybe.
You should
so.
not be running for parliament.
I disagree with you, but
You
that's
are
okay.
a person of principle. You're not willing to be a person of practicality. You want to be a person of principle.
Nothing is practical about the IPC. Let us be honest here. Nothing is practical here. We are
well, yes, it is
Joseph,
practical.
Joseph,
It is practical because
Joseph, here's a question. Listen to this question. It might touch base on what Shlomo was talking about. Somebody sent me this message in the text. It's saying that, don't you feel that this veto will allow the continuation, since Israel is the more powerful side, and since you have, for example, the Magav police force and Ben Gvir who's heading it, that this veto will in fact enforce these and continue these agencies to continue, since they are the more powerful? So how do we expect to overcome the unfair policing system that's
a very good question. In the short run, those governments will continue. In the long run, when we are the parliament meeting day in and day out, passing legislation, the Israeli and the Palestinian governments will be irrelevant, will be more and more irrelevant. And by this legislation clearly says we are not able to pass perfect legislation. So if we are not giving a veto power, we are at a stalemate. We would not be able to pass any legislation whatsoever.
Wow.
None. We undermine our own success. We succeeded in electing a federal government, and we are basically become totally irrelevant by our own action.
No, I think this.
All right,
this
let's go to the Israeli parliament members again and ask them to vote on this legislation. Israeli parliament member, including you, Shlomo.
Okay, say no. No, again, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't give them any veto power. I don't give them anything. We are there to replace them. And I'm sorry if they think that we are they will in any case they will not approve the IPC. What do you think? I mean, if
We
you are
are
in,
now, no. You're not playing fair. We are now at the stage that we have been elected, okay? All right, let's publish the vote.
Yeah, I just want, I have one remark.
67%. So this legislation passed. Let's go to
Uh,
Ron.
Yeah, because as I said earlier, I agree with Shlomo, diagnostic and prognostic, but in general, clearly, if it is this government or one of the more like the so-called opposition government of Bennett or Gantz, that will obviously that will be the case, but if I voted yes for this is by hoping that there will be another type of government, more open and less attached to brutal power than this one. But yeah, of course, if it is this government, I mean, the political game will be much different than if it's a government led by real left parties.
Ron, are you a parliament member in this?
Yes, I voted yes for the parliament member of Israel. Yeah,
Okay. What district do you represent?
I don't know. I mean, do I need to decide?
Yes,
So let's
absolutely.
say
You need to decide.
I
You have a
represent.
responsibility to 61,000 people in your district.
So let's say Petah Tikva because this is where I was born. So only
Okay.
no one in Petah Tikva would ever vote for me. But yeah, let's say
All
Petah
right.
Tikva.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Melabes. Petah Tikva Melabes.
All right. Let's go to now that we overcame this issue, let's go to the first issue, substantive legislation. Libby, would you be so kind as to read this?
All right, this is the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation Police Force Act. Section 1, a common police force is hereby established to enforce all legislation duly enacted by Parliament in accordance with the Constitution of the IPC. 2, the common police force shall have the authority to implement and enforce all laws that have satisfied the constitutional requirements of the IPC Constitution and have been lawfully adopted by Parliament. And 3, the common police force shall be composed of an equal number of Israeli and Palestinian personnel at every rank and level of command. Recruitment, promotion, and assignment shall be conducted in a manner that preserves parity and institutional balance. 4, the common police force shall operate under the direct command and authority of the Vice President of the IPC. The Vice President shall be responsible for the strategic direction, oversight, and accountability of the force in accordance with constitutional provisions. 5, the common police force shall be institutionally independent of both the Israeli and Palestinian security and police forces. No Israeli or Palestinian security authority shall exercise operational control over the common police force. 6, personnel of the common police force shall wear distinctive uniforms and insignia clearly differentiated from those of the Israeli police and the Palestinian police, reflecting its independent and joint character. 7, the common police force shall operate in cooperation with the separate Israeli and Palestinian authorities as necessary for effective law enforcement. Such cooperation shall not compromise the operational independence or neutrality of the police force. Pursuant to Article 2, Section 21 of the IPC Constitution, neither the Palestinian government nor the Israeli government shall possess veto power over the operations or enforcement actions of the common police force, provided that the legislation being enforced has satisfied all constitutional requirements.
All right. Does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation? I hear no questions. Let's go to Ron. Ron, do you have any questions or comments regarding this legislation?
Yeah, I mean, it's a general question because I don't remember if I read it in the Constitution about the structure of the government itself. It is the president who appoints the ministers, and will there be a minister for? I mean, because this is what I found a little bit strange, that it will be the vice president responsible for the strategic direction.
According to the Constitution, both the president can appoint ministers, and the vice president is in charge of the police, and they are rotating
It's on
in
the
2 years.
Constitution, I forgot. Okay.
But both of them, but the parliament has to ratify by 55% on each side all the ministers.
Okay, so yeah, I have no questions or remarks.
All right, let's have the Mr. Prime Minister of Israel and President of Palestine. Do you have any questions?
So
You
I don't
realize
understand.
you're not given a veto power.
Yeah, I understand, but since this is coming over jurisdiction, shouldn't the veto power be part of this? I mean, you're having a police force, because of course the Palestinian president is probably not going to object to this, but definitely the Israeli prime minister would object to this. I would object to this because any related matters to security to Israeli territory, including the Area C and most of Area B, is responsibility of Israel. And the Israeli government will never outsource its security to any agency.
Yeah, we're not asking you to. Your government is dispensable when it comes to this legislation, because we are not. This legislation is attached. This police force is attached to independent legislation.
Where would this where would this police force be deployed? You cannot deploy a police force that doesn't have the how should I say, the permission of the Israeli government into any territories that Israel considers a sovereign territory.
Exactly.
Well,
this would never
the police force will be deployed specific to specific legislation. So we are basically creating a police force, getting it ready to be implemented once we have specific legislation that requires a police force.
And where would this police force be trained and stored and based at?
It would be trained in our private areas in which we independently purchased from the Palestinian and the Israeli citizens.
Okay. And the state of Israel is going to permit for a police force, an armed group of people, to be basically trained and armed in this. And I don't know if this is going to be permitted. We would never permit this.
Yeah, no chance in the world that Israel will permit it.
Yeah, we're not asking for your permission. We are creating a police force, regardless of whether you permit it or not, because you cannot prevent us from doing it.
For what? For what? We are not. I mean, you're not. You want the police that is not actually in Israel. You want it in LA or New York.
No. It would be in Israel, Palestine, in areas that are allowing us to practice and participate.
Who would want to be in a police when Israel, in Israel, you want to make people, to have people being the police, and you think Israel will do nothing to them? Will be very nice to them.
Well, they have independent militias, both in Palestine and Israel, that are acting outside the Israeli and the Palestinian governments, and the Israeli and the Palestinian governments do not interfere with their
Excuse
activity.
me, no, the militia that you have there for Israel, then you have the Ben Gvir militia. This is what you're talking about, because there is no other militia that I know
I'm
of.
talking, no, there are militias both in Palestine and in Israel that are acting outside the law. We are the law. We are elected by the people. We are the only legitimate government, and uh, we're not really asking for your uh, permission. We are conducting that, and we'll see if you try to interfere with our activity.
Of course, they will interfere and they will veto it. They will
They don't
veto
have
for
a
sure.
veto power under this.
Really?
Yes.
They
Read,
don't have
read the read the legislation. It doesn't give a veto power to any government. All right. Let's have the Palestinian parliament members please vote on this legislation. Palestinian parliament members, please vote yes if you approve, no if you do not approve. Publish the vote. 100% of the Palestinian parliament members voted yes over this legislation. And let's go to the Israeli parliament members. All Israeli parliament members who support this, please vote yes. Remember, we are the only legitimate government that has been elected by the people of Israel and Palestine, and we are entitled to have our own police force. If it interferes with the Israeli or the Palestinian forces, then they will have a veto power over that. But we are training to implement legislation. Publish the vote. 100% of the Palestinian parliament members voted in favor of this legislation. Ron, do you have any comments regarding this legislation?
Just that I mean the questions are valid, and I'm asking how the 100 the famous 100 million will be spent for I want to say educational, but it's more than educational effort to prepare the population for such a shift. It's enormous. And I think that this is where it will be the hardest, of course, because as I said, I think about it from the perspective of of social science, and it is a well-known fact that once you have power, you don't give it up. So
Correct.
the question is how will we enforce but I'm not as pessimistic as the others. So I do think it is possible, but it will be I mean, there will be a need to fight for it. It will not come easily. And
What kind of are you realize that we are post-election right now?
post-election in the Confederation for the
In the
Confederation.
simulation,
Yes,
we are pretending to be the government, and we are in a simulation. We are post-election.
of course. So I just ask, I mean, as a person who is not only in this game, but also who thinks about this project, how did we get here and how, because these kind of questions will be raised when we try to convince people to vote for the Constitution, they will ask us these questions, right? So what will we say? How do we prepare? I think it's a valid question. But of
What
course,
is the question?
the question
What
is
question will they ask?
the question that we asked, why would the Israeli policemen let another policing force enter their area and decide what to do there? I mean, why would they give up their power
They're not giving up any power. They're giving a veto power. They don't have a power to begin with, and they are actually given a veto power over something that they didn't possess to begin with.
Okay.
All right, let's go to the next legislation. And that, I think that was actually you requested that legislation because of your educational background. So I'm proposing as the president this legislation. Libby, would you be so kind as to read this legislation?
All right. This is the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation Public Education Act. And the introduction is recognizing education as a foundation for peace, equality, and democratic coexistence, and pursuant to the principles of the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation IPC Constitution, this act establishes a shared public education framework to address educational disparities and promote mutual understanding throughout Israel and Palestine. And the legislation is an independent Department of Education of the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation is hereby established. The Department of Education shall operate independently and shall not be subordinate to either the Israeli or Palestinian governments, while maintaining cooperative relations with both. The department shall address gaps and inequalities in public education throughout the entire area of Israel and Palestine. And the department shall develop and oversee the teaching of Israeli and Palestinian history and political narratives, that ensuring that both perspectives are taught equally. Continuing, the department shall facilitate cooperation between Israeli and Palestinian educational authorities without infringing upon their autonomy. The department shall prioritize the teaching of Arabic and Hebrew, with the goal that Israeli and Palestinian students achieve proficiency in both languages within 5 years. Joint teams of Israeli and Palestinian educators shall draft textbooks and educational materials. Regular teacher exchange programs shall be established between Israeli and Palestinian schools. All curricula developed under this act shall comply with IPC constitutional principles of democracy, equality, and human dignity. The IPC Department of Education shall be funded through the allocation of 3% of customs duties and value-added tax collected by Israel on goods destined for the Israeli and Palestinian public. Pursuant to Article 2, Section 21 of the IPC Constitution, the Israeli and Palestinian governments are granted veto power over this act. Such veto power may be exercised only after the legislation has satisfied all constitutional requirements of the IPC.
All right. Does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation?
Yes, what do you mean by Article 4, the narratives? What do you mean teaching Israeli history and political narratives? Israeli and Palestinians, I don't understand. I mean,
All right.
Palestinian history and political narrative, but Israeli history and political narratives are so it's Zionism, and I don't think that it should be taught in a confederation.
Well, this says the department shall develop and oversee the teaching of Israeli and Palestinian history and political narrative, ensuring that both perspectives are taught equally. So we are not deciding what is the right perspective. We are ensuring that both perspectives will be taught and let the students make their decision of but they both have to be aware
Yeah.
of the other
Yes.
narrative.
I mean, it's too stressful now to think about another way to put it, but I would not put it like this, in a way that gives the same yeah, the same weight to both narratives.
We're not saying the same weight. We are saying
Yeah,
we are giving no weight whatsoever to
okay.
any of the narrative.
You say equally. You say they taught equally, so it is the same way.
Right. We are presenting it equally, but we are not giving it any weight. We are just saying this is what the Israelis thinks. This is the Zionist ideology. This is the Palestinian ideology. We are not telling you which
But the
one
Palestinian
is
is not
true.
ideology; it's history. Whereas
Right.
the Zionist
History,
is
whatever.
no, it is not
History
whatever.
is truth, right? You want the truth, the true history. You don't want any fake history like we learned back in Israel. You want the
Yeah.
true history, and it's just only one truth. There are
Right.
no.
The truth is that each side has different truth. Okay.
Yeah, but there is also one is historical truth. There is things that really
There,
happen.
there, yeah.
I mean,
Okay. So,
I really think that this is an article. Wouldn't be able to vote for this.
well, how would you
As I
word
said,
this?
I don't know. It's too stressful to come up with something right away. But
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe,
I'm having
maybe,
trouble with this.
maybe make a special council or whatever unit of people from both sides who will discuss it and agree about the way to teach it. It is complicated. I must admit. Yeah, it's not something that
Yeah,
is
of
easy.
course, of course. Yeah. Um,
A committee that will.
because I think that the most interesting and fruitful way to approach this subject is to find a committee that will develop a complex, multi-layered one narrative that gives place to everyone, but not like these two competing narratives, one of which is false. I mean, no, it's not the way.
Exactly.
What is subjective history? No, it's not.
I'm sorry. This is a problem. This is a major problem in Israel, and in the whole conflict, if you call it a conflict, has to do with lies, lies and lies and lies for many years. How do you deal with it?
Could I
Yes.
just add something here to say that having been involved in Jewish Palestinian dialogue for many years, I know that there have been a number of very successful approaches to sharing both stories equally by different professors, Israeli Palestinian teachers, religious leaders. Neve Shalom Wahada Salam is one place where mutual stories are shared. I think there are some excellent models on how to make this happen so that people feel that they are equally fairly represented and that, independent ways of telling one story um, can be shared so that everybody feels that they are heard and feel understood.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
How is
I
this?
agree. Just a minute, because Libby, what you say, these groups are for grown-ups. that were already given these two, but here we're talking about the education system. So I don't think that we should rely on the existence of these two narratives, because it is during the school years that these narratives are developed. So I think that the role of a public education system of the Confederation would be to provide already the people with this one complex narrative where everyone can find it.
Okay, keeping in mind that we are not able to pass perfect legislation, okay? Keeping in mind that we have two societies that are in opposition to each other and are having different historical perspective, that want to create to work together and make peace, and we are not able to pass legislation. In my opinion, the most we can do is present both sides, to both history, to both sides, okay, and let them decide. I don't think that the Israeli student, the average Israeli student, has historical perspective of the Palestinian history at all. I don't think that the Palestinian students have a historical perspective of the Israeli students. Okay, the not accepting this legislation would mean the status quo and remaining with both sides being ignorant of the other side. It is much more beneficial to let the students know what the other side believes and let them decide it. That's the purpose of this legislation, because we are a federal government for both the people of Palestine and Israel.
Okay, yeah, all right. Listen, once you took up the word narratives, it's better. But
All right.
of course,
Okay.
nothing's
Let's have the Palestinian parliament members please vote on this legislation.
Sorry, I was going to raise a point, if I may.
Yes.
I think you've decided now, but I was going to suggest that instead of being very specific here, instead just say the department shall oversee the development of a syllabus that aims to deal with the disparate views of history.
Yeah,
What
exactly.
is the benefit of changing this?
Well, because you're not making it very specific that, as I think has been said, this is a very complex thing. You've got people who passionately believe and understand things from different perspectives. We can't legislate on how it's to be done. But I realize that there has been some discussion and simply saying the presentation of both sides, but I think it needs to go beyond that. It needs to go beyond that to say that the department is not just going to ensure that both sides are presented. It's going to aim to deal with the complexity of entrenched beliefs.
How are we going to, basically, you're saying that we will somehow make a decision regarding which narrative is true.
No. I'm saying for the purposes of the legislation, all we're saying is that the department shall oversee the development of a syllabus that will aim to deal with the disparate histories and perceptions.
How do you spell syllabus?
Sylabus.
S-I.
Sylabus. Yeah.
The department shall develop a syllabus
to deal with the complexity of disparate views of the history of Israel Palestine?
The complexity of different views
On the history of Israel Palestine with the aim to reach consensus, maybe, or
no,
something
no,
like that.
with
No, okay.
with the goal of
Reconciliation.
with the goal of introducing.
Reconciled views, or
How is that?
I think you're saying the same
The
thing
department
twice,
shall develop
twice
a
now.
syllabus to address the complexity of different views of the Israeli views of the conflict.
I would say the history of Israel Palestine. Someone in the chat just mentioned mutual understanding as
The department shall develop syllabus to address the complexity of different views. How about held by Israelis and Palestinians?
yeah.
With the goal of introducing both societies.
I would say leave that out with the goal of reaching mutual understanding.
Yeah, but that could be a trap because they'll say you want to make a decision of what is correct and what our goal is to introduce both sides to let both sides
So
be aware of each other rather than making a decision.
mutual understanding is just mutual understanding, it's no decision.
The department shall develop a syllabus to address the complexity of different views held by Israel and Palestine with the goal of introducing both societies to each other's view of history and will present to the Israeli and Palestinian students the subjective history of each side, ensuring equal presentation of both sides. Okay,
Can I make a suggestion, Joseph?
please.
Complexity. Do you maybe want to strike out complexity? That sounds extra daunting.
I agree. And it's not that complex anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
All right, we need to move on. So, um, we cannot satisfy everyone. And
It's just that I really feel that the last part of this article is
all right,
redundant.
I thought that you would be questioning number 10.
Yes, the budget. Of course, of course. I mean, I was going to.
Oh, please do.
No, but again, why would they do that, and how can we enforce it?
Well, first of all, do you understand what it is?
Yeah, that we are asking for money from the taxes collected by the government of Israel, right?
No, from the tariff. From the tariff.
Yeah, but the tariff collect, yeah, not
Because
that.
I just want to give a background, because many people don't know, and I didn't know it either. Israel collects tariff
Yeah,
for
yeah,
both the Palestinians and the Israeli. Okay, so if you live in the West Bank and you order whatever, whatever goods, they come through the port of either Ashdod or Haifa.
yeah.
And Israel collects custom, and and I think they charge the Palestinian 1%, and they give the custom to the Palestinian Authority. So Israel is basically in control of the custom. So we're saying, okay, while you are doing this, why don't you give us 3%? And this would, so to answer your question, Ron, why would Israel do that? Is because it would give them peace, and it would reduce their enormous military expenditure. Because we will have peace. We have a federal government. So it has huge financial and military and security benefits to Israel and the Palestinians. All right, let's have the Palestinian parliament members, and then we'll go to the Israeli and the Palestinian prime minister. Israeli parliament members, please vote on this legislation.
Let's see.
It's Palestinian, no?
Israeli parliament members. I'm sorry, Palestinian parliament members. Published the vote. 83% of the Palestinian parliament members voted in favor of this legislation. The Israeli parliament, please vote. Israeli parliament members. Israeli parliament members, including the parliament member from Haifa. Okay, 5 more seconds to vote. Publish the vote. All Israeli parliament members who voted in favor of this legislation. Ron, do you have any comments or question regarding this legislation?
No, today.
Okay, good. All right, let's go to the, we're running out of time. The
Veto,
post-simulation.
you need to get it
Oh,
approved.
I'm sorry. I ignored the most important person. President of Palestine, are you going to veto this legislation?
So the president of Palestine would absolutely not veto this legislation. This is acceptable to us and very in tune with our coexistence, two states side by side and understanding.
All right. And what about the Prime Minister of Israel? Is he going to veto this
The
legislation?
Prime Minister of Israel will absolutely give a veto to this. We will not let our education system, which is one of the best in the world, Israel produces more scientists and engineers. We have a superb, we will not let a hostile entity take over our education system and poison the Israeli mind with things. We don't want UNRWA, for example, organizations like UNRWA that have poisoned the minds of Palestinians throughout the territories, especially when it comes to history and our identity. Bringing this is a Trojan horse into our education system.
Well, Mr. Prime Minister, you stated time and time again that the Palestinians are teaching their children to be terrorists and that they don't understand the Israeli history. And this doesn't your veto make you a hypocrite now, because you are given an opportunity for the Palestinians to be taught the Jewish Israeli Zionist history.
part of the history of the Jewish people is the history of is Zionism. And when you have these forces who are anti-Zionist, who will be teaching anti-Semitism and a perspective that teaches that Zionism is racism or Zionism is a colonial movement, it's going to be unacceptable.
Well, don't you want to explore or have Palestinian students understand why a Jewish state was necessary to begin with, to understand the Holocaust, to understand the connection the Jewish people have to the land, to understand their justification of the Jewish people to have a Jewish state? You don't want the Palestinians to know all of that? You want to leave them separated from Israeli students and Israeli schools and not be aware of the Israeli narrative?
I just don't think that this has to be achieved through bringing in a foreign element into our education system. I think that we can do initiatives that outreach to Palestinian students and to Israeli students, but to come and to say and to have outside parties come into our education system where we have, then you have the religious elements, you have the national Zionist elements. They're not going to accept this, and
They're
therefore I
not
can't accept
outside.
it.
They're not outside elements. They are elements
But
from
you're
your
going to have Palestinian educators along with from who are not from Israel and Israeli educators who we don't know what their background is, etc. Determining what's going to be taught in our schools, this is unacceptable.
Well, you have a lot of Palestinians that are part of Israel, and Israel has made itself part of the West Bank and Gaza. So you do not want the same people that you live with to be part of the educational system?
Their education system is in need of help, not ours.
All right, Mr. Prime Minister, when is your next election?
Next year, if I can hold on to power.
Okay. I have spoken with your opponent, and they said this is a critical issue for them, education, and they would support
Which
it.
opponent? Nefatali Bennett? You think he would accept this?
Of course not. Of course not. Of course not. But this is what I said earlier, that I mean, it is a little bit difficult to think about it without deciding how would the $100 million will be spent, and yeah, to think about strategy to convince people to vote for this confederation. But also, from what I understand, it's not as if we are going to replace the schools that already exist in Israel
right.
Palestine, right? We're going to establish new schools, and people will have the choice whether to send their children to these schools or not, right? I
Well,
mean,
that's not part of the legislation, but it's a
No, the
good idea.
legislature, go to page 1. The legislation will actually say that these programs will be incorporated into Israeli schools. And this is
Well, actually, you're correct, Ron. This is not part of the legislation, but you're actually making a better legislation.
so let me ask you, like what Libby mentioned earlier, the programs that Libby talks about, like for example, they're community based. You see, it looks to me like you're trying to create a top from bottom, where what Libby was talking about, the organizations that she's talking about that she participates with, they're sort of community and they work hoping to reach the top. They start with the people and then work their way to the top. I think this top to bottom, telling the Israeli government here, accept this in order to change your people, this. No, it should be people who will elect leaders and elect, members of Knesset and stuff that will be open to things like this. But you're going to ask an Israeli right-wing government and even a central government, even if I mean, let's be honest. Mr. Ron said the current government, even not just the current government, but the most likely next government would never accept anything, many of the things that this confederation is proposing. I mean, if you have Naftali Bennett or Benny Gantz, or these guys would laugh at something like this.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that you may be right. You may be right. I'm not sure, but I think that a coalition in Israel that will include the Israeli Palestinian citizens could be created and accept this legislation. In other words, creating a new momentum within the Israeli internal politics. That's what I'm trying to.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, we're not here to beat the dead horse, so to speak. Let's go to the next post-simulation survey. After participating in the simulation, do you support a common federal government for the people of Israel and Palestine? Please vote. We need more voters. We had more voters before. Please vote. 10 more seconds to vote. 10 seconds didn't make a difference. Let's publish the vote. 11 out of 12 voted yes. That's 92%. Before we had 87%, but we had a lower number, and 1 out of 12 voted no. That's 8%. So let's now go to a open discussion, and let's have questions for Ron by the audience. And Nasir, do you want to take over?
Sure. If anyone has any questions, we can start by raising your hands. And if this is the part, Ron, where we can speak about anything about what you do, about your opinion, about what you just saw and experienced, and just in general, the situation.
Yeah, well, so I completely agree with what you said, that there, and I think I said it, that there is no way that this government or the so-called opposition government would ever accept any of this. But I do think that the lines are moving inside Israeli societies, and that there is some movement, and that of course the system and the establishment does everything it can to bring things back to the status quo, but and worse. But we can always hope that something will change. Um, yeah, I told Joseph when we met that I'm of course I'm very dubious about the feasibility of this project, but I do believe that there is something, as you said now, like creating a momentum by the very fact of going out to vote and for this new idea to government. I must say that I find it much more convincing than the One Land for All initiative, Eretz Lekulam, that you must know. So yeah. I don't have more things to say. I mean, if you have questions about my research deal with the use of the biblical symbolic universe as an interface with the social and political reality. So I use now the situation in Israel and Palestine as one of my fields of research, because it is my because of course the biblical myth is used and overused and abused in the Zionist colonial project. So this is why I'm here,
So
I guess.
let me before I go to Joseph, I want to ask you something. Your focus in your research and your teaching and studies, it's more with Judaism, correct? Is it from a
Yes,
religious
yes,
aspect?
yes.
So let me ask you this. In my experience, being a Palestinian from the Jerusalem area, in the 1990s, the Israeli public that I would interact with would regard the West Bank as the territories. In fact, that's what they would call it. They would call it the territories. But today, more and more, and back in the 1990s, they were like, that's the territories, that's a foreign country. But today, I'm noticing a bigger trend, a bigger, huger part of the population, not just in the religious, but also in the secular, referring it to as Judea, Samaria, that this is part of the Jewish homeland. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking that how did we get in what 20, 30 years from them seeing the West Bank as foreign territory, as something strange, but now as an essential part of Jewish survival because this is our homeland and we need to maintain it.
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. It's a very good point, and it is sadly it is true. Your observation. It's not only your friends. It's the entire population, because ever since Netanyahu came to power in '96, there was a conscious effort with much more than $100 million, I guess, to insert to dominate Israeli public education with this kind of religious language, and to erase, of course, the green line. Uh, I mean, people in the maps that are hanging in schools, there's nothing that separates the so-called Judea and Samaria from Israel. So they do study, like the children of your friends from the 90s, now they go to school and they study that this is part of the land and it is called Judea and Samaria. So again, the education is very important. And there are even excursions that go out from completely secular schools to the territories, to the occupied territories. And also, it is very important to remember that unlike other countries where there is a separation between the church and the state, in Israel, the things are not like this. I mean, the so-called church, the religion, is very much involved in public affairs, and also that biblical classes are mandatory in all Israeli public schools, whether they are religious or secular. So even when you grow up secular, you do study the Bible and the symbolic language of the Bible, and you study it mostly in a fundamentalist way, as kind of a roadmap of this is how you do when you come to a country and you need to conquer. And there's a lot of research about it, about the Israeli education system and how it uses the Bible to instill actually what can be qualified as a genocidal mindset. So I guess this is part of the answer, but it's completely true. Yeah, there is a clear shift between the 90s and today.
Sure. Go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you. This excellent question you asked. Just want to, your question reminded me of, I was just there in November, and I think about 20 years ago, I was there as well. I go there very frequently, and I saw these people in red uniform, I think. They're giving free newspapers in the street. Free newspaper, and the newspaper is called Israel Hayom, Israel Today, for free to
It's
the public.
Edelson. I think it's Edelson. No?
Dilson is
Yes,
the one who funded that newspaper.
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so from what I understand, their budget is about $10 million a year for this paper. And in my opinion, this paper helped shift the Israeli narrative tremendously. And it still is. I was shocked to see that they are still giving it away now, almost 20 years later. So there is a conscious effort to change the Israeli mindset and make it more to the right and more anti-Palestinian. This is a very it used to be a very a strong supporter of Netanyahu paper. And this is why Netanyahu would be consulted with Sheldon Adelson on a regular basis, because he called him the redhead guy. And so when people ask me, what business do you have being outside Israel to try to make changes to Israel. This is one example that I use, many, many examples of people that are outside Israel affecting the policies of the Israeli public, all of them, most of them probably to the right. And for some reason, the Israeli public, when they are being affected from outside people to the right, they have no complaint, no issue with that. I mean, this is a long history of people from the outside of Israel. But we have to keep in mind that the Israeli-Palestinian violence and the Israeli-Palestinian issue is affecting many, many issues wherever we live. You know, we see American politicians being elected mostly on their stand on issues, even though they are elected on issues that have nothing to do with Israel. So Israel is affecting everything in the world. Not everything in the world, but a lot of things in the world, including the world's environment. And that's why we think we need to have people around the world supporting a federal government, because the people of the world, many, many, are practicing federal government. And this is a way to help make peace.
Did we Ron, if you wanted to say something, because I was gonna call on Shlomo, and then Ron has a question in the chat. We will ask
Yeah,
afterwards.
yeah.
Go.
No, I don't know what to say, but I mean, it is true that there was an agreement that was signed between Egypt and Israel to buy gas supply, and I think that as always, these wars are many times about the control of land and resources,
Yeah.
and less about even colonization and settlement, and even though, of course, it's a huge part of this. And it would be yeah, and it was
The
it's always a double-edged sword to use religious language, because it is used to hide this reality, this materialistic reality, but it can also be used um, galvanize resistance um, and yeah to yeah
you you
it's
also you
sorry.
also have the peace treaty with Egypt, even though they call it a cold peace, but the people who've actually benefited from it are business people. So there's business transactions, there's business leaders in Egypt that participate with Israeli companies. There's companies in Israel, for example, call centers. Israel actually uses call centers in Egypt,
Yeah,
trains, uses people, Egyptians who speak Hebrew to
yeah,
work in their call centers. So I
yeah,
think that this is sort of this is sort of the thing, it's not the relationship that you see in the UAE where people go back and forth to each other's country and tourism and stuff, but it's definitely done established business ties between sort of elitists from both countries.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
At
think
the
my
expense of the
point here
Palestinian.
was that, sorry, my point here was, yeah, I think there's the reality is that politics and business has vested interests, and there's a lot of vested interests to see, perhaps to see Israel continue as they are now.
Yeah.
Yes, I think, and it is clear that there are very, I mean, we saw it with Trump, but that Israel is a settler colonial state, that it is, why would the right-wing politics be so acceptable in Israel? Because it is a society engaged in a colonial process.
Mhm.
There are always also these business interests that and treaties and collaborations that are behind everything. And the only way to resist is to reclaim power to the people who are subject to these dynamics and to raise awareness. And I think this is why I like the idea of the confederation, that it comes from below. People who are invited to vote for a new government, for a new confederation. This is why I liked it, the idea. But because it is reclaiming power for the people. And that's the only way to resist this capitalist and imperialist dynamics, I think.
I should add before I go to Shlomo that not only are we going to talk about the gas deals, but we're going to see, because of the war in Gaza, the Israeli exports of weapons is going to increase a lot because they were able to perfect these weapons that have become much more sophisticated using AI technology and things like that. And who is the market for these? Of course, they're going to be some of these Middle East regimes and North African regimes and African regimes as well that need these weapons to control their population. So I think we're going to see a lot of that. So the Gaza, as well as the West Bank, has been testing grounds for the development of these weapons and killing machines. And this is
So
going to do a lot of.
there are so many countries now. What's the name? Like Germany, they bought also the missiles, and I'm sure that Brazil and states in Africa and South America, it's not only Middle Eastern countries that will buy
Yeah,
Israeli weapons, and yeah, the Israeli stock market rockets. I mean, it is
yeah,
very successful. The Israeli economy is booming.
yeah.
So.
I believe now they're probably the top 10 weapons exporter in the world. So you think of a small country and being in that
Yeah.
position, it's amazing.
Yes.
Sorry, Shalom, it took a little bit of time. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, and I agree with everything. But I'd like to, by the way, apropos training and using Gaza and the West Bank as a laboratory, look at the United States itself. You have the police, the militarized police. You have the ICE now, and all of that. It is horrible. And they were trained in Israel. Part of them, or Israelis were sent to train the police in the United States. It is pretty grim. Um, I would like
Yeah.
to mention that about education. I was fortunate to grow up in the 50s and and 60s, and the way the Bible was, the Jewish Bible was, because it's very tricky, right? You have the Joshua and all of that, and then you have the rest of it. And so we were taught in a way like a story or like a Shakespearean, if talk
Where
about
was
the
it?
king.
Where was it, if I can ask?
It's in the 60s.
Yes,
Or
but
where?
well, yeah.
In Haifa. I was first in a secular. First, I was in a religious school, which is interesting. It's a whole story by itself. Then I moved to a secular school, and that's how we, especially the irony, if you know the irony,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
later on I went to
No,
Bosmat.
it's
But
interesting
Mhm. I'm
because
sorry.
there
Why do you ask?
no, because there is a research done by a social psychologist from the University of Tel Aviv in the 60s called George Tamarin, that he went to that is it is a research that is often side quoted, that he went to a class and he studied how they were learning the book of Joshua, and he compared the same story of Joshua and he fabricated a story that has the exact same structure, but it's about China, about a Chinese emperor. And he asked them, so if you arrive at this situation and you have you are the Chinese emperor, you need to conquer, would you kill all the population? And they said no. But if you are Joshua and only if you're, so would you kill all the population? And then they said yes. And he gave them a series of questions that made it obvious that they identify that it's not as a metaphor for them, that they identify with these people that are coming to Canaan, which is now Palestine, and they need to the genocide or subjugate the population. So there was some reason, and he was, by the way, he was fired from the University of Tel Aviv because of this research, of course.
By the way, apropos Joshua, you know that the story is actually, if you read it carefully, that he sent some seven
Spies,
messengers, yeah, to
spies,
find. I'm sorry.
spies.
Spies, yes, spies to Canaan, and they came back and said the land is beautiful, it's milk and honey and everything, but it is all populated. So he said, okay, no problem, we will kill all of them. And the question was, and out of the seven, only two agreed, and the rest say, we no, we are not, we disagreed.
Yeah.
So these
This,
two were maybe was Joshua himself and Caleb ben Yefuneh, I
yeah,
remember.
exactly. This is Moses that sent them. It's in the book
Yeah,
of Numbers.
Moses sent them, and then Joshua, and then he said, "Okay,
But
Joshua, you
yeah,
take it from
yeah,
here." And
yeah,
it's interesting because in the Zionism in the beginning, I forget the name of one of these big Zionists who came. He came to Palestine, and he saw, and he came back and said, "You know, the bride is beautiful, but she's married already." You know,
yeah,
which is very similar if you think about it. It's a
yes,
very,
yes,
very bad idea, the whole
yeah.
Zionism.
Yeah, yeah. No, it is amazing how, and it is very confusing indeed, because Zionism from its inception relies heavily on the biblical story, and people as secular as as professor at university, as secular poets, they made this parallel between like Bialik when he was, I mean, he grew up religious, of course, but he became secular, and he made a very clear parallel between the Zionist movement and the Ezra and Nehemiah story. You know, when they come back, the Shivat Zion, the so-called Shivat Zion, how it is called in Zionist historiography. So they really feel themselves as a continuation. Like there was a break of 2,000 years, and now we are here to continue and to relive in a way the biblical narrative and to reactivate and the fact that the biblical narrative ends with the destruction. I mean, when you read the books of Genesis to Kings, these are the books that open the Bible. They end with the destruction of the temple. They don't think about that, but they really think that their role now is to rebuild the temple, to relive. And there are movements today, various movements, with a lot of support from evangelical Christians from the United States, money supports, yeah, that are really working very hard to rebuild the new temple, a new Jewish temple, instead of or besides Al-Aqsa. And they become more and more popular. There are already thousands of Jews who are going to the Temple Mount to pray. The taboo that was still in vigor like 10 years ago among religious Zionists is no longer there. So more and more people go there to pray. And yeah, the so-called messianic this messianic dynamics of Zionism is very popular today.
Yeah,
That's
it is.
But it's not just among them. It's like even among secular Jews, like in East Jerusalem, where I'm from, it was seen as we don't want that part of the city. That
the,
part of the city is just problems and this and this. But now it's like even they are saying Jerusalem is important, is important. It has to be under Israeli control and sovereignty, and I say including Sharfat and Beit Hanina and Al Azariya, and they're like, yes, it's it's
there are no secular Zionists. Zionism is a messianic.
mm,
I mean, there are no secular, and there is no way. I don't like this distinction, because Zionism is inherently messianic and religious, but also secular and of course and rational. This is why it's so powerful and potent, because it has these two elements. So now, because of the situation, the so-called secular population, and this is something that happened before, but it became very salient after October 7. Many secular people said, "Oh, I discovered now my Judaism, that I remember that I'm Jewish." I get connected to my Judaism. And of course, it is a completely empty Judaism. It is completely narcissistic Judaism that very ignorant or kind of cherry picking
And
citation.
nationalistic.
Yeah, very nationalistic, of course, very dominant.
Racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to mention something quickly. Said that there was another Zion. It's very confusing because there was another Zionism of people who view living together with the population, with the Arab Palestinian population, and that Zionism was pushed aside and replaced by the Ben Gurion and the Jabotinsky Zionism, unfortunately. And so it is. And by the way, Bialik, I don't think he had in mind to replace the population. I mean, it was this idea, but
That's the thing, that there are people who clearly said it, and there are people who didn't say it, and when you read them, you have the impression that they didn't think about it, and you say, yeah, it's kind of irresponsible not to think about it because they are there, and you see what's going to happen. But of course,
exactly.
he died before 48, before the Nakba.
Yeah, they didn't count them, right? And Brenner noticed it, and he said, what about them?" You know,
Yes.
and Brenner was
Many people ask what about them, and yeah, there was a strong, and sometimes people from inside the Zionist apparatus itself, and from the who served in very high position in the Israeli government and education system, were proponents of the Brit Shalom,
yes.
of the binational state, and really opposed the project of a Jewish state. But yeah, they were marginalized very systematically, indeed.
You're right. Yeah, that's the tragedy. Yeah,
I
very
would
much.
like to address the skepticism about the IPC. Nasir said the Prime Minister Netanyahu will never vote for this. Who is going to vote for it? The Gantz or Bennett and I agree that if we look at the current circumstances, the current reality, then yes, they will not agree to it. However, we are forgetting the new reality that the IPC will create. You cannot discount that new reality. Once you have the IPC and you have a new reality, the politicians will shift. They'll shift their views tremendously. A good example of that, probably a perfect example, is Sadat before he came to Israel and after. Before he came to Israel, he was the arch nemesis of Israel. Israel did not accept him, said that he is the enemy, that he caused the death and destruction of Israel and caused a war. He was a hated enemy of Israel. They made fun of him. They didn't like him. He took a trip by plane, that's all, wearing a suit and flying to Israel. And he changed the reality completely. One flight. Now, if you had thought about it before that flight, you would have been as skeptical as possible about him getting the Sinai back. He wasn't able to get it through a war, but he got it through one flight.
Not exactly. I have a comment.
He changed reality. So what I am saying is the IPC could change reality, world reality, the reality inside Israel. Keep that in mind when you voice your skepticism.
How far do you think this IPC is
Go
going to
ahead,
go?
I mean, there's a difference between the Sinai and the West Bank when it comes to Jews. I don't know if we can apply the same criteria or the same.
I'm not speaking about
Yeah, but
land. I'm not speaking about land. I agree with you. There is a difference between Sinai and the West Bank. I'm speaking
No,
about
and there is a
attitude.
difference between the public opinion and the situation of the public today and in the beginning of the in 77, 78, when was it that he came? Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but of course, yeah, of course, this is something that is
They were standing with Egyptian flags,
Yeah,
and
but
when he was
no, you
driving
missed.
from when he was being escorted from
Yeah.
Lod Airport to
Yeah.
Jerusalem.
You missed the whole history before that. Before that, in the early 70s, in 71, he actually proposed peace. And Golda Meir and Dayan say no. I mean, they wanted to say, okay, peace, but we want Sharm el-Sheikh. And Dayan said, better Sharm el-Sheikh without peace than peace without Sharm el-Sheikh. Remember that? Okay, so he already proposed it before.
So you're
He just,
validating my point, Shlomo. You're
wait a second.
validating my point that through one trip, he made a big difference.
He would not make this trip without coordinating and agreeing before. It is not just you take the plane and you go. No, it is done way,
He did
way
not
before.
coordinate. He did not know he was going to get.
No, no.
Menachem Begin was not even the president, the prime minister at that
Right,
time.
right. The only way is through Kissinger, through the United States. Kissinger wanted to make peace in 71, and Israel say no. And Kissinger said, okay, you know what? Let's have a little war. Let's let them fight. Let us some bloodshed, and then they maybe learn. The Israel is learning only through power, only through force. There is no other lessons. There is no other way you can convince Israel to do anything.
But I agree with you in general. But Sadat was able to change the Israeli mindset.
It was an addition. I mean, when Israel mindset was ready, because the 73 war taught Israel a lesson. Okay, Israel had a bloody nose and they had to step back. And then Kissinger and the United States say, you do exactly what we tell you to do or else. And they just followed. I mean, whom do you
But
think the powers are?
Shlomo, Sadat changed the Israeli public opinion mindset completely. You cannot deny that.
It
I'm
was
sorry.
helpful. It was helpful once the Israelis are open and once they are on their knees and then suddenly the humanity of the other side is being suddenly
Well,
shown and
they
so
are
on.
on
Of
their
course,
knees right now. They are on their knees right now.
not yet.
They, they are talking about the destruction. How much more do you want them to be on their knees?
Oh, they are not at all. Look, they are fighting. They are ready to fight Iran even. I mean, they fight, fight,
Yeah,
fight.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, but they suffered similar devastation that they suffered in 1973, and
No.
a shift in attitude came from Sadat, not from the Israeli government. All right.
Yeah, the Israeli government today is also different from then. At least then you can talk reasoning.
Yeah, but the
Reasoning.
public, you can have a shift in public, and not only a shift in public in Israel, but worldwide. An election
Yeah.
in Israel, Palestine, reaching 5 million votes, will have an election worldwide. All right. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Nasir.
go ahead. Next one is Sean, and then we'll go to Samir.
Joseph, I agree with Shlomo that Israel is rigid and it's stiff, and there's no way.
Sean, can you like step up to your mic a little bit? It's kind of hard to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me better now or no?
Yeah,
No?
it's kind of blurry. How should I, not blurry, but
You know what? Go to the next guy. I'll see what's wrong with my microphone. Go to the next
yeah.
guy.
Let's go. Yeah, go ahead. I think you had this problem before, but let's go with Samir. Sorry, Sean.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I was late, but anyway, I get the tail of it. what Shlomo said was correct. I witnessed that myself. In 1971, there was the Rogers Peace Initiative, and Egypt under, after President Nasser, there was Sadat. President Nasser died in 1970. Then Sadat succeeded him. But in any way, Egypt was ready to make peace in 1971 under the Rogers Peace Initiative, but Israel refused that. And what just Shlomo said is correct, that Israel was too arrogant and they didn't want to negotiate with Egypt. They don't want to give back Sinai. I mean, it went on for 2 years, almost 3 years, until 1973. And actually, what made Israel negotiate after that is 1973, when almost Israel collapsed. And that was, I mean, I was part of it. I saw it in my eyes. I mean, when I was in Syria and I was in Damascus, and how in the first 3 days of the 1973 war, Israel lost the war. Egypt and Syria almost defeated them. And I have even a cousin who was lieutenant in the Syrian army, who told me that he was part of the war and he went all the way down. He was heading tanks, what to call it, division. But in any way, in the first 3 days, he said, we went all the way down almost to Tabariya Lake. And there was treason by Hafez Assad when he actually asked them to stop and withdraw. And actually, he told me, I mean, that was, he was my cousin, and he told me the story. He said, we did not see any Israeli on the way from the Syrian border, the Golans, all the way to Tabariya Lake. They did not face the Syrian army. And the Syrian army also took the Sheikh mountain, the summit of Sheikh mountain at that time. The only thing that Israel did, they threatened to use nuclear weapons at that time. And the United States got interfered in that, and they told them, no, don't use that. We were gonna support you all the way. And in a matter of 1 day, 24 hours, hundreds of American Phantoms, even with American pilots, flew to Israel and flew all the way to Damascus. And in 1 day, 98 Phantom Israeli American airplanes were shut down over Damascus. I saw it in my eyes. They were down like flies. And even, I mean, some pilot was so mad, he dropped the bomb. And where did he drop it? He dropped it at the Soviet Cultural Center in the middle of Damascus, and killed the director and some guards and whatever, and destroyed the whole building. It was like 5-story building. And that was in the middle of Damascus. I used to go visit. I was living nearby. And that was tragic. But that damn Israeli pilot was captured in Damascus, in the middle street of Damascus. And he was later, I mean, exchanged for a couple of Syrian soldiers were imprisoned by Israel. But in any way, That what changed the whole atmosphere in the war, and then they put the pressure on Egypt at that time to stop, and they had like what you call it, a third division, and the third division was surrounded by Sharon at that time, and they did kind of theater to it, and in any way they ended up with Israel stopping the war after the 6 days. The Syrians, with also that traitor Hafez Assad, asked the Syrian army to withdraw after they all the way down. And according to my cousin, he said he gave the order to his tanks and whatever to withdraw. And some of them said, what the heck wrong with our president, our leadership? We're not going to stop until we head to Tel Aviv. We're going to go all the way. And others, they said, I don't know what to do, and I'm not going to withdraw. And himself, he said he didn't know what to do. I mean, he gave the order, nobody's listened.
So
And somehow he ended up, yeah, he ended up back to Syria, and that's what happened. But in any way, that lesson of 1973, that what led later for Israel to understand how to make peace with Egypt later in 1978 and whatever, with Sadat and all of that. And they have 1974 peace or ceasefire with Syria, which lasted until now, until 1924, and then it broke it after the win of the Syrian Revolution, and they got into more territories and broke the 1974 agreement. And that's what Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara, he said that let us go back to 1974 ceasefire with Israel, and that's it for now. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, don't forget the American power here. I mean, it's not Assad was not just a traitor. I mean, he was listening to the United States too, and it's not.
Well, of course, there was part of it, but still, I mean, the United States made the change to help Israel to win the war.
Thank you, Samir.
Guys, I have to go. It's been 2.5 hours. I want to thank Ron so much for your generosity and for your time.
Thank you, Ron.
For being
Appreciate
with
it.
us
Thank
and participating in this exercise. I know that you're after a long travel, so I'm very appreciative of your time and giving us the opportunity to speak to you.
Yeah,
I have to go, but I'm going to keep it on at the Zoom. But
maybe Ron can stay for a little bit. I don't know.
Yes, I can say a bit, but also I need to go in 15 minutes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, let me Ron, I wanted to capitalize on the fact that you come at it from a religious perspective, from your studies. And here's the thing. In the area that I'm in right now, there's a mayor who's in trouble right now. He's being asked to resign from power.
There's a what? Sorry, I don't
a mayor.
A mayor, okay.
Yeah. A mayor, you know what a mayor is, right? He's the
Yes, but where is it? In the States?
In the States, in the United States, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's the mayor of a city, I guess you'd say the Rosh Ha'iriya, right?
Yes,
Rosh Ha'iriya, okay. So he's facing problems because he said something that the state of Israel is causing hatred for anti-Semitism. It's creating an increase in anti-Semitism around the world.
Yeah,
and so
which is
so a lot of people are seeing that this statement is in fact taking the blame of people who attack Jews or anti-Semitic attacks actions, saying that you're taking the blame away from actual racism. And you're saying that it's Israel's fault. Israel is what's creating this problem.
It's not creating, but it is definitely
inflaming. Yeah, yeah.
fomenting.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
we can agree because fact is,
It is even sometimes creating because it does inject. I have only one example that was because it was an article in Haaretz about someone who is a member of the Likud party who actually who has a very popular Twitter account in Arabic because he was born in Lebanon. He's kind of a weird guy, and I forgot his Rubin, I think his name. I forgot. And he actually, one of his tweets was about the veracity of the protocols of the elders of Zion, saying, yes, this is true. We are controlling the world and we are doing it with we are very clever to do it. And that was
so
like just an example.
let me ask you, so because it's argued by many people who are in the pro-Palestinian camp that Zionism throughout its history has used anti-Semitism as a weapon to promote its cause, even at the expense of Jews abroad. Now,
Absolutely.
is that an
Absolutely.
but if I say that in public, it's considered rampant anti-Semitism. You can't say stuff like that. But
They're saying that you're making conspiracy,
Yeah.
anti-Semitic conspiracy.
You're anti-Semitic, you're conspiracy
I
theory,
know,
etc.
I know. This is something that we have to unpack. I in my institution, I launched, and I'm not a specialist of anti-Semitism, but I saw that also in France. I'm working in not right now in Brazil, but I'm working in France, and there it is like it's even it's very stressful. You cannot speak about these subjects openly. And even when you have, there was Ben Caspit, he's a very prominent Israeli journalist who was in on public TV, like in the channel 2, the most popular. And he said the about some it was not the last incident of Bundi, but it was something much lighter that like an anti-Semitic act, but not that did not cost the life of anyone. And he said, yeah, this is very good. Anti-Semitism is very good. I want there to be anti-Semitism because that would mean that all the Jews will come here. And this is what we need,
Yeah,
something that will push the Jews. I mean, this is so obvious and it is so logical and it is like simple functionality and reasoning can tell you that. And it was taught by people from the beginning of the Zionist movement and the Haredi, the ultra-religious resistance to Zionism, always flaunted out this that they are waving anti-Semitism. They are using anti-Semitism. They are provoking anti-Semitism. So this is a fact. The question is why is it so difficult to talk about it? So I mean, this is how I think that each one needs to work in his field. So what I did in my university, which is the École des Hautes Études en Sciences Sociales, it is a kind of prestigious school in Paris. I launched a seminar with I called two colleagues of mine that know this stuff much better than I do, and we have a seminar that is called Anti-Semitism, Anti-Anti-Semitism, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So just to talk about anti-Semitism and the Israeli and Palestinian conflict, this is something that is transgressive, but if you do it I mean, just in like in a Facebook exchange or just on a small talk in the street, it won't work. But if you create a platform where you can open this stuff up and bring people who are specialists to talk about it, I think that is a good way to approach the problem.
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I think it is important because I was looking at the cases of Columbia University, where they brought a bunch of cases of anti-Semitism, and some of the people who are deciding whether or not it's anti-Semitism are the ADL, for example, which is extremely very political. And
Racist.
some of the cases, I think out of a dozen of them, they brought, I think it was a dozen or 30 of them or something like that. Only one of them had to deal with actual racism against Jews. The others were critical of Israel.
Yeah.
So professors who were critical of Israel, student organizations that were critical of Israel. So
Yeah,
I just want to remind everybody that our guest Ron, he said that he had to here for 15 minutes. So there's 3 people have their hands up. So if you can make your questions very brief, because I think he's gonna run. Go ahead, Ron, and then we'll go to Shlomo and then Sean, and then we're gonna wrap up. Go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ron. Just to echo what you're saying as well is I think it's a two-directional relationship between Zionism and anti-Semitism. It's effectively a symbiotic relationship where there's an advantage to countries to have anti-Semitism, and this anti-Semites support the idea that that there's an Israeli state. This is something that I've only just read about, but I found it very interesting, and I think you've just underscored some of what I read.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. May I say very quickly? Number
Sure.
one, Herzl already said, he said that the anti-Semites will be our best friends. And then when Zionism started, there was, and then in England, there was a huge resistance, especially, so all the, Balfour Declaration and all of that, then most of the British Parliament voted for it. But one objected, the only one Jew, they objected, Montague, his name. And he said that will create anti-Semitism like you cannot imagine, because we will be considered a fifth column, which is what is now happening in the United States. And there is a new wave of anti-Israel, anti-Semitism, because so many Jews who are powerful and rich and billionaires, they are influencing not only the American government, but on the whole narrative, the freedom of speech. People are getting crazy. I mean, there is no freedom of speech when it comes to pro-Palestine, against genocide. They cannot talk. This will cost the Jews heavily, and Israel too, and it's just a matter of time.
Of
Yeah,
course. And
it's
there's also a law that is going to pass in France that equates in a law anti-Semitism to anti-Zionism, and that puts you in prison if you dare to compare what Israel does in Gaza to what the Nazis did in Germany. Like any comparison, it's not only it's a fine and a prison time.
and this is the thing, is that Israel always found haven with the right-wing Americans and right-wing people in the West. And the thing is that, I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
if you guys were
but it's not
watching.
only right wing; it's also Democrats
Yeah,
and
no, but what I'm saying
socialists.
is that we've seen criticism of Israel and stuff in the left and the Democrats, but I'm saying now we're seeing it in the last 2 years. If you see what happened to the right wing in the United States, like I was watching the speeches from Turning Point USA, which is a young conservative, very pro-Israel organization. But some of the speeches that I heard in the last 2 days at their conference, like if you listen to their speeches, yesterday and the day before compared to say a year ago, it was like night and day. And now, because one thing that both the right and the left do cherish is freedom of speech, and when they find that there are certain agents that are limiting their freedom of speech, it mobilizes them, and
That's the dialectics, that history is never linear. You think that you know
yeah,
where it's going. Who would have thought that this is where we will have our,
yeah.
support from
And
people
you're
like
seeing
Tucker
people like Tucker
Carlson?
Carlson
Yeah, of
like
course.
getting standing ovation, and
Yeah,
Ben Shapiro was ostracized. There were people booing him while he was speaking, because people are like, this currency is no longer valid. This credit card is no longer, you've maxed
yeah,
out your limit. Sean,
yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, I don't want to butt
Yeah,
in out of, I just, one quick thing. That's why Josef said this is not an initiative to be skeptical of. You just never know which twist and turn. You have to be at the ready.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean, I didn't mean to butt in.
no,
I
no,
just
no
wanted to
problem, no
say.
I
problem.
think,
It's okay.
do you have to run, Ron? Ron, you look like you're
No, I
about to
have,
run.
I have, I have a couple of more minutes, but I
Okay,
need
let's
to
go real
go.
quick, Sean.
The,
We're
the
gonna wrap
dog
it
is
up.
Okay,
already
just to make
out of
this quick,
control.
honestly, even with our discussion right now, it's really hard to talk about Israel, because even talking about Israel, criticizing Israel, is considered anti-Semitism. Already, people on social media that I've been hearing of, that they say something critical of Israel, and then they have the police knocking at their door, And then one guy was saying that, do you have a warrant for to come in my house? And they're like, no. And then he's like, then get the hell out of my property. And he's like, see what happens when you criticize Israel? Like you'll have it's now because they know what's going on in Gaza, and they know there's going to be a huge rise of criticism of Israel. So now they're implementing a new law so no people can criticize Israel, regardless of what Israel does. And this is not good for the states or anybody, because this is becoming like one guy even said, criticize Israel and AIPAC will bury you.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
this
Thank
is
you very much.
anti-Semitic.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
I think we did touch on this and this. I want to go ahead and wrap things up, Ron. I appreciate your time, and on behalf of Joseph and the IPC and everybody here, again, we thank you for your time and your expertise.
Nasir, let Ron
Very-
have the final comment.
Okay,
So, sorry,
go ahead.
what?
He said give you the final comment. Go ahead, one final
Yeah.
comment, and then we're gonna wrap it
Go
up.
on, go.
Go ahead, Ron.
That I would have. So I would just say, what did I want to say? Yes, that it was very instructive for me, and I think that the question of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism is crucial, and it feels like for the past 2 years it felt like things are going to flip, and maybe they are flipping now. And it is very important to stay focused and to talk about it, even when you are being attacked. Of course, you don't want the police to come knocking on your door, but just, find the roots and the stability and the assurance to talk about it, because it's true. Zionism does go hand in hand with anti-Semitism from its very inception, and that's the truth. And all the other things are manipulation to shut us up.
Awesome. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you
Everybody,
very much.
see you in the next simulation. Take care, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Heather,
Bye.
talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Heather, glad you're here, but we'll talk later.
We never get to thank Dan. So, Dan, thank you very much.